First came the awareness of her own existence, the simple, undeniable fact that she was. Then, sensation, a cool surface beneath her, a sterile scent in her nostrils, and a distant humming that seemed to vibrate through her bones. Finally, memory cascaded through her mind like a waterfall. Earth, the evacuation ships, the desperate escape from Sol's dying star, and then nothing. She forced her eyes open and immediately regretted it. Blinding light seared her retinas, causing her to flinch and throw an arm across her face. When she tried again, more cautiously, she found herself staring at a ceiling that was decidedly not human in design. It undulated subtly, its pale, blue surface adorned with intricate spiral patterns that seemed to shift and flow when she wasn't looking directly at them. "Subject is conscious," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The language was not English, not any human tongue, and yet Elara understood perfectly, as if the meaning had been planted directly into her mind, bypassing her ears entirely. She sat up abruptly, adrenaline flooding her system. The movement sent her head spinning, but she forced herself to take stock of her surroundings. She lay on a raised platform in the center of what could only be described as a laboratory. The walls curved organically, punctuated by alcoves filled with equipment she couldn't begin to comprehend. Everything gleamed with a pearlescent sheen, illuminated by a diffuse light that seemed to emanate from the structure itself. And she was not alone. 3 figures stood observing her from a respectful distance. Their bodies were vaguely humanoid, bipedal, with 2 upper limbs and a head, but there the similarities ended. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, their slender frames covered in a fine, iridescent scaling that shifted colors with their movements. Their faces were flat expanses dominated by 4 multifaceted eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, below which a collection of delicate tendrils quivered constantly. "What is this? Where am I?" Elara demanded, surprised to find that her voice worked normally. She swung her legs over the edge of the platform, noticing for the first time that she was dressed in a simple garment of unfamiliar material that clung to her skin like a second layer. The tallest of the aliens stepped forward, its tendrils rippling in what Elara somehow intuited was an expression of respect or deference. "You are in the central research facility of Nexus Station," the alien replied, its thoughts forming words in Elara's mind. "I am Chief Scientist Thrallvex of the Galactic Confederation. These are my colleagues, research specialists Zinmar and Kreldon." "That doesn't tell me anything," Elara said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" Thrallvex's scales shifted to a deeper blue. "You are here because we found your stasis pod adrift in the void, the only intact container among the debris of what we believe was once a human evacuation vessel. You are here because, to our knowledge, you're the last surviving member of your species." The words hit Elara like a physical blow. The last surviving human. It couldn't be possible. There had been hundreds of ships, thousands of stasis pods on each, millions of humans fleeing the solar system ahead of the solar flare that would render Earth uninhabitable. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "There were other ships, colonies already established on Proxima systems. You are wrong. We have been searching the known galaxy for human survivors for over 300 years, said Zinmar, the smallest of the 3 aliens. We have found traces of attempted settlements, but all have been abandoned or destroyed. Your stasis pod is the first sign of viable human life we have discovered in over a century. 300 years. The number echoed in Elara's mind, impossible to comprehend. Everyone she had ever known was long dead. Her entire civilization, her species gone. She was a living fossil, a relic of a vanished world. Why? She managed to ask, her voice cracking. Why search for us at all? The 3 aliens exchanged what Elara could only interpret as glances, their head tendrils weaving complex patterns in the air. That, said Thrallvex, is a very complex question, one that we hope you will help us answer. For the first 3 days, or what Elara estimated to be days, in this timeless environment. She refused to cooperate with her alien hosts, or captors, as she couldn't help but think of them. She answered their questions with monosyllables when she answered at all, and spent most of her time in the quarters they had provided for her, staring at the slowly shifting patterns on the ceiling and trying to process the enormity of her loss. The room itself was comfortable enough, clearly adapted to human needs, though with an alien aesthetic. The bed conformed perfectly to her body, the temperature adjusted automatically to her preference, and food appeared at regular intervals. Synthesized approximations of Earth cuisine that were almost, but not quite, right in flavor and texture to Thrallvex visited daily, patient and unfailingly polite, never pushing but always present. On the fourth day, when the chief scientist appeared at her door, Elara finally gave in to her curiosity. "Show me the evidence," she demanded without preamble. "Prove to me that humanity is extinct." The alien scales rippled in what Elara was beginning to recognize as satisfaction. "I thought you might ask that eventually. Come with me." Thrallvex led her through corridors of the same pearlescent material as her quarters, occasionally passing other aliens of various morphologies, all of whom regarded Elara with what seemed like intense interest. Some had body structures so foreign that she could barely comprehend them as sentient beings. Floating clusters of tentacles, crystalline structures that hovered above the ground, gelatinous masses that flowed rather than walked. "How many species are in this Galactic Confederation?" Elara asked, momentarily distracted from her grief. "Currently, 327 recognized Sophant species," Thrallvex answered, "though only about 40 have significant presence on Nexus Station." They arrived at a large circular chamber dominated by what Elara could only describe as a three-dimensional display system. At a gesture from Thrallvex, the empty air in the center of the room filled with a detailed map of the Milky Way galaxy. "This is our current understanding of human diaspora following the great solar event of your year, 2157, the alien explained, causing certain points in the galactic map to illuminate. "Your species managed to establish colonies here, here, and here. 3 distinct clusters of stars lit up, all relatively close to Earth's position. These colonies survived for varying periods, the longest for approximately 70 years, before failing due to resource depletion, conflict with indigenous life forms, or in one case, a nearby supernova." The lights winked out one by one as Thrallvex spoke. "The final confirmed human settlement was located in what you called the Tau Ceti system. It was destroyed by an asteroid impact approximately 227 years ago." Elara stared at the map, trying to process the information. "What about unconfirmed settlements? There were supposed to be ships heading for the outer arm beyond Confederation space." Thrallvex's tendrils writhed in what might have been discomfort. "We have found no evidence of successful colonization beyond these points. However, our records do indicate that several vessels were indeed directed toward unexplored regions. Without faster-than-light capabilities, though, such journeys would have taken centuries. The probability of survival was minimal, but not zero," Elara insisted, clinging to the sliver of hope. "Not zero," Thrallvex conceded, "which is why we continue to search. And why you are so important to us, Dr. Chen." Elara turned to face the alien directly. "How do you know my name?" "My title. Your Stasis pod contained a complete biographical record. We know a great deal about you, Dr. Elara Chen, xenobiologist and evolutionary specialist from the University of New Singapore. You were 34 Earth years old at the time of your departure, unmarried, no children. You volunteered for the Proxima expedition due to your expertise in adaptation to extreme environments." The clinical recitation of her life made Elara feel exposed, vulnerable. "And now I'm what? A research specimen? The last human in a galactic zoo." Thrallvex's scales darkened to a deep indigo. "You are a guest of the Confederation, Dr. Chen, and potentially, if you are willing, a collaborator. There is much we hope to learn from you, and much we believe you could help us understand about your species." "Why?" Elara demanded, the question that had been burning in her since awakening. "Why this interest in humans specifically? We barely made it off our own planet. We never developed FTL travel. We were cosmically insignificant." For the first time, Thrall-Vex seemed genuinely surprised. "You truly don't know? Your own significance in galactic history?" Elara spread her hands in frustration. "Enlighten me." The alien made a gesture, and the galactic map disappeared, replaced by images that Elara recognized with a shock. Earth artifacts, human faces, scenes from her planet's history. "Humans," said Thrall-Vex with a reverence that transcended the telepathic translation, "were the only species in known galactic history to develop advanced technology without external guidance. Every other spacefaring race, including my own, achieved technological advancement through discovery of artifacts left by precursor civilizations, or through direct contact with already advanced species." The display showed archaeological digs, alien researchers carefully excavating what looked like pieces of ancient technology. 10 million years ago, the first wave seeded promising worlds with knowledge caches, ensuring that evolution would follow certain predetermined paths. 5 million years later, the second wave provided the first FTL principles to emerging civilizations. 2 million years ago, the third wave established the foundational principles of the Confederation. The images shifted to show human history, stone tools, bronze implements, the Industrial Revolution, digital technology, primitive spacecraft. But humans did it all alone. From stone tools to spaceflight in less than 10,000 years, with no external guidance, no discovered caches, no intervention. It should have been impossible. By our models, your species should have plateaued technologically for at least 100,000 years before achieving space travel, if you achieved it at all. Elara stared at the display, trying to process what she was hearing. "You were saying we were special? Because we figured things out on our own?" "More than special," said Thrall-Vex, tendrils quivering with intensity. "Unique, unprecedented, potentially transformative to our understanding of softened development. And then, just as we discovered your existence, just as we prepared to make contact, you were gone. The solar event that destroyed your homeworld occurred centuries before we could reach your system. By the time Confederation ships arrived, we found only ruins and radiation." The alien stepped closer, its massive frame looming over Elara. "For 300 years, we have been searching for survivors, hoping to understand the miracle that was humanity. And now, finally, we have found you." Over the following weeks, Elara found herself shifting from reluctant subject to active investigator. The more she learned about the Confederation's interest in humanity, the more questions she had of her own. She was given access to their databases, allowed to study their records of human history, incomplete and often amusingly misinterpreted, and provided with laboratory space to conduct her own research. She learned that the Confederation had recovered substantial artifacts from Earth and its colonies, everything from ancient pottery to quantum computers. They had mapped human neural structures, analyzed DNA, reconstructed languages, and built elaborate models of human psychological development. They had even attempted to recreate human art and music, with results that ranged from eerily accurate to comically wrong. What they couldn't understand, what no amount of archaeological evidence could tell them, was how humans thought, how they felt, how they had managed to innovate so rapidly without external guidance. "Your species appears to have an unusual relationship with adversity," commented Krell Dunn, the taciturn researcher who had been assigned as Elara's primary liaison. They were reviewing historical records of human disasters and subsequent recoveries. "Where most species retreat from challenges that exceed certain thresholds, humans seem to lean into them. Necessity is the mother of invention," Elara quoted absently, scrolling through images of post-disaster rebuilding efforts from throughout human history. "We adapt because we have to," But other species face necessity as well. Krell Dunn countered. The Vril of Deneb 4 were stranded on an ice moon for 6 generations, yet developed no significant new technologies during that period. The Hatterans faced 11 consecutive extinction-level climate shifts, yet emerged with essentially the same technological profile they began with. Only after discovering first-wave artifacts did either species advance. Elara considered this. Maybe it's not about necessity alone, but how we perceive it. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We have this stubborn idea that we can thrive, that we can master our environment rather than just endure it. Optimism as an evolutionary strategy. Krell-Dunn's tendrils formed a pattern that Elara had come to associate with scientific interest. Fascinating. This aligns with certain theories about human cognitive development that Thrallvex has proposed. A thought occurred to Elara. You keep talking about humans in the past tense. I'm still here, you know. Still human. Krell-Dunn's scales flushed a pale yellow. Embarrassment, Elara had learned. Of course. My apologies, Dr. Chen. It is difficult to overcome the habits of speaking about a species believed extinct for so long. Well, not extinct yet, Elara muttered, turning back to the display. But the exchange had planted a seed of unease in her mind. Was she truly just a research subject to them? The last specimen of a fascinating but fundamentally dead species. Later that day, she broached the subject with Thrallvex during their regular evening discussion. What exactly is my status here? She asked bluntly. Am I a prisoner? A guest? A living museum exhibit? The chief scientist's scales rippled contemplatively. You are a cultural ambassador without a culture, Dr. Chen. A diplomat without nation. Your status is unprecedented in Confederation history. That's not an answer. No, it is not, Thrallvex admitted. The truth is, we are still determining what your presence means for us. For 3 centuries, humanity has been a historical subject, fascinating but safely contained in the past. Now, suddenly, humanity has a voice again, a living representative who can challenge our assumptions, correct our misinterpretations, and potentially influence our future. And that makes your people uncomfortable, Elara surmised. Some, Thrallvex acknowledged. There are those in the Confederation Council who view your revival as an unnecessary complication. Others see it as an unprecedented opportunity. Many are simply curious. And you, Elara pressed. What do you see me as? The alien was silent for a long moment, tendrils weaving slowly through the air in a pattern Elara couldn't interpret. I see you as the answer to questions I have spent my entire career asking, Thrallvex finally said. And I see you as a person who has lost everything, awakened into a universe that has moved on without your kind. Both perspectives demand my respect. Elara nodded slowly. It wasn't entirely reassuring, but it was honest. I want to see it, she said abruptly. See what, Dr. Chen? Stasis bot. The wreckage you found me in. You have told me about it. Show me recordings, but I want to see it myself. Thrallvex's scales shifted through several colors rapidly. Surprise, concern, calculation. That might be arranged. Though I must warn you, it may be more distressing than you anticipate. I need to see it, Elara insisted. I need something tangible to connect me to my past, to prove to myself that everything you have told me is real. Very well, the alien conceded. I will make the arrangements. 2 days later, Elara found herself aboard a small transport vessel, accompanied by Thrallvex and Zinmar, traveling to a secure research facility in another section of the massive Nexus station. As they approached, she got her first glimpse of the station's true scale from an external viewport, a vast artificial construct that resembled nothing so much as a gigantic snowflake, with branching arms extending for hundreds of kilometers in all directions. How many people live here? She asked, momentarily distracted by the sight. Approximately 12 million permanent residents, Zinmar answered, with another 3 to 4 million transients at any given time. Elara tried to wrap her mind around the scale of it all. The largest space habitat humans had ever built had housed fewer than 10,000 people. Their vessel docked at a nondescript facility at the end of one of the station's minor arms. Inside, after passing through several security checkpoints, they entered a vast chamber that appeared to be a sophisticated conservation laboratory. And there, suspended in the center of the room, was what remained of Elara's past. The stasis pod itself was relatively intact, a cylindrical capsule approximately 3 meters long, its surface marred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation scoring. Around it, carefully arranged and preserved, were fragments of the larger vessel that had once contained it. Twisted metal, shattered composite materials, remnants of electronic systems. Elara approached slowly, her heart pounding. With trembling fingers, she reached out to touch the surface of the pod that had carried her through 3 centuries of void. "The Endurance," she said softly, tracing the barely legible name etched on the pod's side. "That was my ship, one of the secondary evacuation vessels. We were headed for Tau Ceti." "The Endurance," Thrallvex repeated, the alien's telepathic voice gentle in Elara's mind. "We found no records of that designation in our archaeological surveys. It was a last-minute addition to the evacuation fleet," Elara explained, moving around the pod, examining it from all angles. "A converted research vessel. We carried mostly scientists, specialists who might be useful for establishing a self-sufficient colony." She stopped abruptly, noticing a damaged panel on the side of the pod. "This is the control interface. It should contain the mission logs, the passenger manifest." Her voice trailed off as she realized the implications. "Have you accessed this data?" Zinmar stepped forward. "We have recovered approximately 62% of the pod's stored information. Much was corrupted by radiation exposure or physical damage, but we have reconstructed portions of the mission log and some personal records." "Show me," Elara demanded. The aliens exchanged glances, their tendrils weaving complex patterns. "Some of the information may be distressing," Thrallvex cautioned. "I need to know," Elara insisted. "These were my people, my colleagues, my friends. I deserve to know what happened to them." After a moment's hesitation, Zinmar gestured to a nearby console. The air above it shimmered, and a holographic display formed. Fragmentary text and images reconstructed from the pod's damaged memory systems. Elara's eyes darted across the information, piecing together the story of the Endurance's final days. The ship had indeed been bound for Tau Ceti, carrying 237 specialists in various fields crucial for establishing a self-sustaining colony. 6 months into the journey, however, they had encountered a massive debris field, the remnants of another evacuation ship destroyed in some catastrophic failure. While attempting to navigate the debris, the Endurance had suffered critical damage to its propulsion systems. With no way to maintain course to Tau Ceti, the captain had made the decision to place all personnel in stasis while the ship's automated systems searched for a viable alternative destination. According to the fragmentary logs, the ship had drifted for decades, its systems gradually failing, its trajectory carrying it farther and farther from established human routes. One by one, the stasis pods had failed as power systems degraded. Elara's pod, it seemed, had been one of the last functional units when some final catastrophe, the nature of which was not clear from the surviving data, had torn the ship apart. 237 people, Elara whispered, staring at the partial manifest. Names she recognized, colleagues, friends, people she had worked with, laughed with, shared hopes with for a new beginning on a distant world. All gone, all dust, and I'm the only one who survived. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of it. Why? Why me and not them? Your pod was equipped with an experimental long-term power cell, Zinmar explained, indicating a component visible through the damaged section of the pod. According to our analysis, it was a prototype fusion system, more durable than the standard units. We believe this allowed your pod to maintain minimal life support functions long after the others had failed. Elara stared at the innocuous device that had preserved her life while everyone else she knew perished. A random chance, a quirk of assignment. She had received the experimental pod simply because of her priority status as a critical specialist. "I want to see all of it," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "Every scrap of data you have recovered. I need to know everything that happened." "Of course," Thralvex agreed, "though I must insist on having medical support present." The psychological impact of "I'm fine," Elara cut in sharply. Then, softening her tone, "I'm a scientist, Thralvex. I need data to process reality. Right now, the past is just a story you have told me. I need to make it real before I can truly accept it and move forward." The alien scales shifted to a deep, somber purple. "I understand, Dr. Chen. We will provide you with everything we have recovered." As they prepared to leave the conservation laboratory, Elara turned for one last look at the stasis pod that had carried her across 3 centuries. It seemed simultaneously massive and fragile, a technological marvel that had preserved her life, yet merely a fragment of all that humanity had built and lost. In that moment, she realized with perfect clarity that she was not just the last human alive. She was the last repository of human experience, human memory, human perspective. Whatever came next, whether she remained a guest, became a collaborator, or eventually found a way to forge a new path in this alien future, she carried the weight of her entire species with her. It was a burden she had never asked for, but one she would not, put down. "Explain humor to me again," said Krell Dunn, tendrils twitching in what Elara had come to recognize as intellectual frustration. Particularly this concept of sarcasm. Our records indicate it was a fundamental aspect of human communication. Its function seems counterproductive to clear information exchange. 3 months had passed since Elara's awakening. She had moved from her initial quarters to a larger suite, personalizing the space with artifacts recovered from her stasis pod and reproductions of Earth art created by the station's fabrication systems. She spent most days working with various Confederation researchers, helping them understand the nuances of human culture, psychology, and history that their archaeological records couldn't capture. She smiled at Krell Dunn's confusion, finding an unexpected comfort in these cultural exchange sessions. Sarcasm isn't primarily about information exchange. It's about establishing social bonds, expressing frustration in a non-threatening way, or sometimes just entertaining ourselves and others. By saying the opposite of what you mean, how does this not create constant misunderstandings? Context, tone, facial expressions, they all provide clues, Elara explained. And yes, sometimes there are misunderstandings, but that's part of the richness of human communication. We don't just exchange data, we play with meaning. Krell Dunn made a notation in the air with a gesture. This aligns with Thralvex's theory that human cognition prioritizes pattern-making over accuracy in many contexts. A fascinating adaptation. Elara leaned back in her chair, a custom design that accommodated her human frame while matching the aesthetic of Confederation furnishings. "Speaking of Thralvex, I haven't seen the chief scientist in several days. Is everything all right?" Krell Dunn's scales shifted to a pale blue. Hesitation. "Thralvex has been called to a high council session regarding the implications of your presence. There are ongoing debates about next steps." "Next steps?" Elara frowned. "What does that mean?" "There are proposals being considered," Krell Dunn said carefully. "Some factions believe we should focus on preserving human knowledge and cultural artifacts. Others advocate for more proactive approaches." A chill ran down Elara's spine. "Such as?" Krell Dunn's tendrils writhed uncomfortably. "I'm not privy to all the details, but I believe one proposal involves genetic preservation, extracting and archiving your reproductive material to potentially restore human presence in the galaxy at some future point. "You mean cloning me? Creating human babies in a lab?" Elara stood abruptly, anger flaring. "Without my consent, no decision has been made," Krell Dunn assured her hastily, scales flushing yellow with distress. Thrallvex has been very clear that any such action would require your full informed consent. But the debate itself indicates how significant your discovery has been for the Confederation. Elara paced the room, trying to process this new information. I have been cooperative. I have answered your questions, share my knowledge. But I'm not just a walking genetic repository. I'm a person. Of course, Krell Dunn agreed. But you must understand, from the Confederation's perspective, you're also the sole representative of a species that defied all our understanding of sophic development. The potential knowledge contained in human genetic structure, in human neural patterns, it represents an unprecedented opportunity. An opportunity for what? Elara demanded. What exactly does the Confederation hope to gain from studying humanity? Krell Dunn was silent for a long moment, scales shifting through various colors, as if sorting through possible responses. Independence, the alien finally said. What do you mean? Every spacefaring species in the Confederation achieved its technological advancement through discovery of precursor artifacts, Krell Dunn explained. We are all, in a sense, following paths laid down for us millions of years ago. Our scientific development, our social structures, even our artistic expressions, all influenced by the knowledge caches left by the first, second, and third waves. The alien moved to a window overlooking the vast expanse of Nexus Station. For millennia, we have debated whether this represents benevolent guidance or subtle control. Are we truly independent species, or are we developing along predetermined lines established by ancient precursors? Humans, uniquely among all known sophants, developed without this influence. You represent the possibility of true independence, of breaking free from patterns established eons before any of our species existed. Elara joined Krell Dunn at the window, considering the implications. But humanity is gone, she said softly. One surviving individual can't restart a species. Perhaps not literally, Krell Dunn acknowledged. But your cognitive patterns, your problem-solving approaches, your unique perspective, these can be studied, perhaps even adapted. You carry within you the essence of what made humanity exceptional. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Thrallvex, who entered the chamber with an air of suppressed excitement, scales rippling with brilliant colors. Dr. Chen, the chief scientist, greeted her. I bring news that may change everything. Elara turned, immediately alert. What is it? The Deep Space Monitoring Array has detected a signal, faint but unmistakable. It bears the hallmarks of human communication protocols, originating from a star system at the edge of what you called the Perseus Arm, approximately 3,000 light-years from here. Elara's heart seemed to stop. Human? You are certain? Not absolute certainty, Thrallvex cautioned. But the signal contains mathematical sequences consistent with human encryption methods recovered from Earth artifacts. It appears to be a repeating beacon of some kind. How old is the signal? Elara asked, mind racing through the implications. Given the distance, at least 3,000 years old, Thrallvex admitted. But it is still being transmitted. Something, or someone, at the source is still active. Elara gripped the windowsill for support, dizzy with the possibility. I thought you said you've been searching for centuries. How could you miss this? The signal is incredibly weak, detectable only with our most recent sensor technology, Thrallvex explained. And it is being transmitted on frequencies we would not normally monitor, frequencies that correspond to what humans called gamma radiation rather than conventional communication bands. A deliberate choice, Elara murmured, designed to be overlooked by casual observation, but recognizable to anyone specifically looking for human technology. Precisely, Thrallvex's tendrils wove an excited pattern. The High Council has authorized an expedition to investigate the source. A research vessel is being prepared as we speak. Elara straightened, a newfound determination flooding through her. "I'm going with you." That was my recommendation to the council, Thrallvex confirmed. "And they have agreed, with certain conditions. You will be accompanied by a research team, including myself, and subject to standard safety protocols. We depart in 3 days." For the first time since her awakening, Elara felt something like hope kindling in her chest. Whether the signal came from human survivors, an automated system, or something else entirely, it represented a connection to her past, and potentially a path to her future. The Confederation vessel Seeker of Truth dropped out of FTL transit at the edge of the target star system, its massive hull briefly distorting as it reintegrated with normal space-time. From her observation dome, Elara watched the stars shift from the bizarre geometries of faster-than-light travel to the familiar pinpoints of conventional space. The journey had taken nearly a month by her reckoning, though the Confederation crew measured time differently, using units based on some standardized galactic constant that Elara still struggled to convert properly. She had spent the time learning everything she could about Confederation technology, politics, and history, determined to understand the context in which she now existed. "We have achieved stable orbit and are scanning for the signal source," announced Thrallvex, joining her in the observation dome. "Preliminary data suggests it originates from the fourth planet in this system, a cold, rocky world with a thin atmosphere, not unlike your Mars." Elara nodded, studying the view screen that showed the planet in question, a rust-colored sphere streaked with dark patches. "Any signs of artificial structures? Energy signatures?" "Nothing obvious from this distance," Thrallvex replied. "But the signal is definitely coming from the surface. We will need to send down a survey team." "I'm going," Elara said immediately, anticipating the objection before Thrallvex could voice it. "And don't tell me it's too dangerous. I have reviewed your safety protocols and environmental equipment. I can handle it." The chief scientist's tendrils wove a pattern of reluctant acquiescence. "The council anticipated your insistence. They have authorized your participation in the initial survey under my direct supervision." 6 hours later, Elara found herself aboard a sleek landing craft, descending toward the planet's surface alongside Thrallvex, Zinmar, and 3 other Confederation specialists whose names she still had trouble pronouncing. She wore an environmental suit custom fabricated for her human physiology, a marvel of Confederation technology that was surprisingly comfortable despite its alien design. "Signal strength is increasing," reported the pilot, a spherical being whose body seemed to be composed of hundreds of small, independently moving segments that somehow functioned as a unified organism. "We should be within visual range of the source soon." The craft skimmed over a barren landscape of rust-colored rocks and shallow canyons, reminiscent of Earth's more desolate regions. As they crested a ridgeline, Elara gasped. Below them, nestled in a sheltered valley, stood an unmistakably artificial structure, a complex of interconnected domes and towers spread across several square kilometers. Its design was not human, not exactly, but neither did it match the organic curves and spirals of Confederation architecture. It was something else entirely, angular yet flowing, geometric yet asymmetrical. "Is that human construction?" Zinmar asked, turning to Elara. She shook her head slowly. "No human colony ever built anything like that. At least, not before I went into stasis. Energy readings are minimal but present," reported one of the specialists. "The structure appears to be powered, but operating at extremely low capacity. And the signal, it's definitely coming from the central dome." The landing craft set down on a flat area near the complex. After a careful assessment of environmental conditions, the survey team disembarked and approached the structure on foot, sensors extended, weapons discreetly ready at their sides. Elara noticed the security measures, but chose not to comment. Under the circumstances, caution seemed warranted.